Welcome to the College Admission TV Presidential Podcast. We sit down with passionate leaders in education for their thoughts and insights in today's world. We are excited to have as our guest Dr. Kenneth R. Evans, President of Oklahoma City University in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
Well, I always like to start off with your journey, and I'd love to understand who are the mentors that helped shape your path to the presidency?
Well, I was in a undergraduate program at University of California, Davis, and I was fortunate enough to have a political science professor who permitted me to attend a PhD seminar as an undergraduate. So I got exposure to more deep dive into topics and an opportunity to explore the conversational platform that higher ed can provide. UC Davis was a big school, and classes were immense by and large, but this was a relatively small seminar environment. And then when I went on to the MBA, I ended up teaching in the MBA program statistics because I just had a facility in math and it was easy for me to do. That in turn resulted in me, and that was a faculty member there who saw that I had some potential and encouraged me to go on for a doctoral program. My experience at the University of Missouri after I spent 10 years at Arizona State was because a faculty member at Arizona State took the dean's job at the University of Missouri and saw me as a potential candidate for a department chair. And had he not done that, who knows, it might have been, I may never have gone in that direction. And one thing leads to another, and then here you are. So the presidency was a little bit different, Brad. I don't know whether you really want to share this, but my wife at the time had a reoccurrence of cancer when I was at a dean's job at the University of Oklahoma. And I needed to be near MD Anderson. So I began looking at opportunities in Texas, and a presidency showed a potential promise for me at Lamar University, and I took it. And one thing led to another, and here I am in my second presidency at a private school, my first time doing that.
So now, where did you grow up?
I was born in Pittsburgh, spent about 5 years in Chicago, and then California for junior high, high school, and then college, of course, UC Davis, and my master's program, and then got my doctorate at the University of Colorado.
Okay, great. Just out of curiosity, where did you go to middle and high school?
I'm sorry?
Where did you go to middle school? Where did you go to high school?
Oh, middle school was Darby Elementary in California, and high school was Granada Hills High. It was had some famous athletes came out of Granada Hills High School, went into the pros. So I was not one of them.
Well, I love to touch upon some of those elements. I actually grew up in Northern California, and my wife went to UC Davis undergrad, grew up in Davis, and I have family that live in Granite Bay, so near the Sacramento area. So now Pittsburgh, we don't have to dive too deep into that, but I'm a Steelers fan. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I maintain a residual affinity, affliction, if you will, for being a Steelers fan, and follow them. Quite honestly, they've struggled. I love Pittsburgh. My mom, in the latter stages of her life, asked me to go back with her and do a roots tour. So we went through the Confluence. I had never been to the Confluence. It's been decades since I'd been to the Confluence. My God, what a beautiful spot. It was vastly different than what I remember as a kid. So
let's talk a little bit about Oklahoma City University. Share with me the competitive advantages that the institution has. And I know that you can dive deep into the whys, why Oklahoma City, what makes it different. But I'll really ask you two questions. What are some of the things that makes it different? And then how do you get that message out to a broader audience?
Okay. Well, we're the only university that's actually embedded in Oklahoma City. So we have a presence uh, that has been around for 120 some odd years. So we've obviously got a tradition here. Our law school actually is located in the first high school in Oklahoma City. Beautiful old building. That's even yet closer to the downtown sector of Oklahoma City. And so our students obviously can do internships and practicums with a variety of firms, not to mention the court environment. What I would argue we are probably best known for, however, is our performing arts program. We have it depends on who's doing the ranking any given year, but the number one dance program in the country. We have a musical theater program, which is likewise up in the very high echelons, top 10. And our instrumental and vocal programs are likewise in the top 10, 15 consistently nationwide. So in terms of taking our message out, it depends on the program, Brad. So for instance, the case of dance, it's reaching out to all the dance studios across the country, and we're well known, well thought of. Our students are not prepared exclusively for what is traditional kind of dance programs, which tend to be ballet and modern. We teach kids to get a job. So they learn tap, they learn jazz, and so then they take that skill set and they go into our musical theater program. And so they have dance and vocal, and they have some acting talent, and they can perform in any one of a variety of venues that are paying gigs across the country, across the world. Our nursing program is likewise well thought of. It has a strong brand in the Oklahoma City marketplace and has traditionally done an exceptional job preparing both nurses, nurse practitioners, doctorates in DNPs, doctors and nurse practitioner. We also have a PT program, a physical therapy program, and a physician assistant program as well. So we cover a very broad gambit of the health-related professions. Business school has had a long-standing reputation in the business community, banking space. So again, all of those, some of that messaging comes because of the alumni boards that we have, folks that attend our various events that occur on campus. Because we're a performing arts school, we put on performances, and they're Broadway caliber, Brad. They're exceptional. So our dance program, which does 2 performances every year, musical theater does 4, 1 opera, 1 more straight ahead kind of Broadway caliber kind of product. All attract full audiences in an auditorium of almost 1,000 people, 1,200 people. So that gets the message out.
Mhm. Well, and it does seem like the message is out beyond just the state. And just keep me honest here. You have roughly 40% in-state students and the rest
Right,
out of state. Is that correct?
right.
Which is that's rather unusual. I think in a good way, because oftentimes schools are really honed in on maybe 50, 60 miles of campus, which you may very well be. But the fact that you've got 54 or 56% out of state really speaks to your broad reach.
Well, when I do freshman move-in, which I do periodically just to kind of meet and greet parents and just kind of watch the transition of parents letting kids go. It's always kind of fun to see that happen. Um, the license plates are Vermont, New Hampshire, Minnesota, Wisconsin, etc. So the draw of the performing arts is clearly nationwide and international.
So when you see parents or students, and maybe when you're talking to prospective parents or students, or maybe in move-in, what's that top question that you get from a parent? And I would imagine it's different from a student.
Well, I mean, obviously the single greatest concern the parents have is the safety and well-being of their child when they let them go. And so being able to demonstrate that we have both the security on campus as well as the caliber of the facilities to provide them a safe and healthy environment is critical. Um, Increasingly more so, counseling services and the ability to be able to provide students the wherewithal to weather difficult periods of time where they may need to seek assistance. The other thing that when I do a meet and greet with brand new students and their parents, when we do kind of a walkthrough of campus, and they show up for about 4 of those during the summer, is I remind parents, many of which in the room, of course, are college educated, that it's okay if your child changes majors. It's very commonplace, and at the end of the day, if they are not pursuing their passion, they will not be successful. So if they discover early on that this is not really right for them, then we'll help them find what's right. At the end of the day, everybody will be better for that. And it's a difficult, and we can get them done in 4.5 years, even if they do change majors. More often it takes 5 if they change majors a couple of times. So we'll move them along. We try to be as efficient as we can, but we want that student to have an opportunity to follow the journey that's best for them.
So let's talk about the local community. You know, I imagine that the relationship with businesses, with the local community is strong and important to you and the institution. How do you go about making sure that you're protecting your backyard?
Fair. The dance, the performing arts in general, because of its dominance in the market, uh, creates its own armor, if you will. Obviously, you're constantly defending that position in the market, securing the right faculty, maintaining the facilities that you need, assuring that you're providing the students the kind of support they need. Often that means discounts or scholarships to be able to secure some of the better talent. And that, I would assume, for the kind of question you're asking, kind of goes without saying. We are, as you're probably well aware, the end of the Trail of Tears, the relocation program of Native Americans. There are 39 recognized tribes in Oklahoma, all of which have a partition of land somewhere. Recently, this last year, we took over the National Sovereignty Symposium, which
Hmm.
attracts about 600 people. This year was about 660 people, talking about policies, laws, regulations pertinent to sovereignty, but then also about the protection of language and tradition, legacy, medication, herbals, and all the rest of it are all part of that conversation. Having that relationship is very important to us because we are apolitical in somewhat of a politically steeped environment here in terms of the relationship between the Native Americans and the state government. We can provide, I think, the kind of objective engagement with the Native American community that's so critical. We also have partnered with Apple Computer and their community service, social services side of their business, which is firewalled from their for-profit sector, providing technology training, app preparation, other skill development for teachers who in turn then teach students basic skills in the STEM fields that are so critical to their communities. And we're likewise working on language revitalization. Apple, as you may or may not know, created a platform for the phone that about 20 years ago translates Cherokee to English and back. We now have done that for the Osage, Chickasaw, and Choctaw nations as well, and are working on 2 or 3 other tribes as I speak. So that backyard is never entirely protected, but I can tell you that our relationship with the Native American community is very important to us, and it's extensive.
Mm-hmm. Now, were the FAFSA delays a challenge for the institution?
That's kind of a redundant question. Yes, yeah,
Like,
it is. You
well,
answered your own question. Of course it was. Everything we do, like anybody else, we do year-to-date projections, and all the year-to-dates are off because we're not able to get out the financial aid packages to the prospective students the way we would normally do it in a timely fashion. As it turns out, our numbers are looking very good. In fact, they may potentially exceed what we did last fall. But yeah, it's been a challenge.
And I'd imagine, I mean, to your point, how you address that, how do you combat that? And then, one of the challenges when you look nationwide, just generally speaking, completion rates are down significantly, which really leads a number of institutions, and I'd love to get your take on this, a number of institutions really concerned about students either taking a gap year or not going to college at all, especially first generation. So how do you combat that, or how do you make sure that parents are confident in staying the course?
We're a little different there. We run about an 85% completion rate. So the caliber of the student that we attract to Oklahoma City University is really exceptional. I've been at flagship institutions in Arizona, Missouri, and Oklahoma. And I'm going to tell you that I've never experienced a caliber of student quite like we have here. They're exceptional.
So how do you make sure that you are, I hear the phrase meet students where they are.
Mm-hmm.
How do you accomplish
that? You're talking really more outside of the traditional freshman enrolled student. That student, we meet them where they are in large part because they're attracted here because of the programs we have. And so that we've already kind of met them or they wouldn't be here. You're really speaking more to that graduate student population and or that that transition student population. So illustratively, we just put in place a 12-month BSN program. It's obviously intense as all get out. These are individuals who have completed an undergraduate degree in some other field. So the gen ed architecture is done. And we will put them through an intensive 12-month and includes practicum experience, residency. When they're complete, they're ready to be a practicing nurse. They're ready to sit for the certification exam. We've also put in place an accelerated MBA program. Likewise, reaching an audience that needs to get the MBA done. They don't want a lot of follow-all. It's got a hybrid component to it, so there's both face-to-face and online. Frankly, we're also looking at we're actually looking at 2 satellite campuses right now. At some point, there are constraints in terms of what we're able to do here in Oklahoma City. So we're beginning to look at some of the fastest growing population sectors in the country and taking our product into those spaces. Commonly done among private institutions. We're not certainly not breaking new ground here, but it makes a great deal of sense for us.
So you have roughly 2,600 students. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, we were 27-ish, roughly almost 28 in the beginning of the fall. We had actually a larger enrollment in January than we did in the fall of this last year.
Okay.
We have presently about 8 portals of entry during the academic year. When I arrived here, we had 2. We are not an agrarian economy anymore. It makes no sense to have students free during the summer to go home and pick peaches. It's a silly notion. These students are staying the course. They want to get done. They want to move on and do whatever they want to do career-wise. So I anticipate we may be at around 29 and change in the fall. In January 25, we may cap 3,000. So we're on a trajectory that is moving in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. So how big can you get?
I would argue that I'd have to refresh some dorms that are being used for other purposes right now, but we could probably go to about 4,500, 42,500, 4,500, maybe 5,000 residential. But then of course, online is infinite. You can do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Now, when you look at alumni, how are you engaging alumni today to make them feel tied to the institution, but also in ways that may help the top of the funnel with prospective students and families?
Sure. Actually, it's amazing how active our alumni are in recruiting students. we constantly get recommendations from our trustees and our advisory board members and assorted other folks that are connected to the institution in some formal capacity or informal capacity. So to go back and answer your question, almost all of our colleges and so many of our departments have advisory boards who meet with regularity and, of course, provide advice and counsel. And, of course, they're encouraged to participate in helping identify future students. We have a very large board of trustees. It's over 40 people who are actively engaged with the campus in a variety of different ways. And then and we also have alumni chapters. In fact, recently we just came back from a New York alumni chapter event. We do what's referred to in the industry as a showcase for performing arts students, where the top 15 to 20 of our students perform in front of agents. This is the first time since I've been here we've had this many agents show up for an event. We had 60 agents in the room. And then those students, after they performed in front of them, they get callbacks for opportunities for various shows and tours. So that's another alumni connection. Then, because we do these performances every year, we have people attending what we do and they see what we're able to do. And then they recommend people to come to OCU because they see this amazing performing arts program and they run into somebody who they think is talented and they direct them our way. And of course, the connection with the Native American community is also resulting in opportunities for growing our enrollment as well. Because we're teaching teachers how to do computer programming, we're actually offering them a master's degree in digital learning and leading, which in turn then provides them the opportunity to be a leader in their institutions in STEM preparation for the students. So you're always working on networking. It's a big part of what we do. And then I present in a variety of settings, Rotary, Chamber of Commerce, telling our story and what we're up to. And I'm happy to do that because it's a story that's worth telling.
How do you make sure that students and maybe it's freshmen, maybe it's sophomores and beyond. How do you make sure that those students feel comfortable, persist, especially in a new environment, right? As a freshman student, let's say residential on campus, just to make sure that, hey, you fit in and you have the support that you need to matriculate and graduate.
Well, we are a bit for Oklahoma, which is traditionally, at least more recently, been a red state. Politically, we're something of a liberal bubble in Oklahoma. So students that are of a different political ilk and potentially also of a different identity ilk find our environment to be one that's very comfortable. One of the reasons why I think we have a differential advantage that I didn't mention earlier is that our class sizes are relatively small. I remember literally the first class I attended at UC Davis was the first of a sequence of 3 classes in chemistry. And there were 500 students in the lecture hall, and it was tiered severely. So you felt like you were sitting on a cliff. And the faculty member stood in the front of the classroom. I swear to you, I can't believe he said that. We would never say that today. And he said, look to your right, look to your left. It's on the quarter system at Davis. So he said, at the end of the first quarter, the person to your left won't be here. And at the end of the second quarter, the person to your right won't be here. Make sure you're not either the person on the left or the right. And that was the extent of their retention efforts. We are a little more sensitive about retaining students than they were back in the day. Because we're an intimate environment, students know each other. And so when they don't see a colleague friend of theirs in the classroom, they'll follow up and find out where they are. We get to know our students through our student affairs group. And as a result, that in turn plays a meaningful role in keeping track of where students are doing. You can't walk across this campus and not have somebody say hello to you and know your name. It's just like the Cheers bar, it's an amazing place where you are known and people care about what happens to you.
So where do you see the institution in 5 years?
Well, 5, we could get close because we're pulling quite a large international student audience. I've traveled to India now twice, and we'll probably go back a couple more times this next year. Um, really recruiting in the STEM fields principally, analytics, computer science, management information system, and we're also recruiting in the nursing space. Um, we could be somewhere between 3,500 and 4,000 students, a residential, and maybe another, and that includes the satellite campuses. So we may have 500 students at the satellite campus we're about ready to open. And then maybe another 1,000 ballpark online, somewhere in that neck of the woods. So close to 5,000 total enrolled.
So what are those top two or three keep you up at night moments and challenges that you're dealing with every day?
Well, the political temperature is always critical when you're actively involved in recruiting international students. Because if we shut student visas down, then clearly that creates a problem. So I've been very careful while we are growing the international student population. We're equally, if not even more extensively, focused on the domestic student population as well, minimizing the vulnerabilities that in the past have impacted private institutions in particular. I mean, you recall the last significant tranche of international students were China, and the consequences when we shut the border on the Chinese students was severe. So I'm always concerned about that. The insidious nature of the relationship between college enrollment and the economy is that when the economy goes in the tank, college enrollment goes up. And that has been that way for decades. Um, I I exist on a different kind of platform where when the economy is healthy, I'm healthy. Because when the economy is healthy, people spend money in performing arts, they attend shows. Producing students in that space is obviously critical for me. So being able to continue to perform in venues where people are willing to spend money is vital. So I am concerned about where the economy is going. I see it sitting on a potentially on an artificial high right now, and I'm concerned about where that may go. My business background plagues me a little bit because I see things that bother me on a regular basis. I'm always concerned about the health of the mental health of the students who receive. You're seeing the Surgeon General is speaking about social media recently and about the possibility of putting warnings on social media. The number of students we see in counseling, Brad, is stunning. It's upwards of close to 700 students a year. Unique cases, and it's not alone here. I mean, this is not an isolated case. I saw it when I was at Lamar University and elsewhere. I'm concerned about the fragility of the undergraduate population and how we can best prepare them for the realities of the demands of today's marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you look at Oklahoma City University, just making sure, as you had mentioned, that the students progress and find careers. As far as the businesses, it sounds like you're able to find faculty. And really getting to my question, how difficult is it to hire the right faculty? And as you had mentioned, you have a number of stellar programs that in part attract this faculty, I imagine. But how do you make sure that not only do you attract the faculty that you need, but then you keep them as well?
Well, you never want anybody working for you who's not good enough to leave. That's my rule of thumb. So in the context of the performing arts, they're all good enough to leave. So obviously the extent that we're recruiting really exceptional students that challenge them and they absolutely love working with these incredible talents on a daily basis keeps them. Mindful of the fact that if they get an amazing gig somewhere that attracts them, lures them away, they're going to do it. And I don't blame them for doing that. But performing arts is always a challenge, but nonetheless, maybe not as great as you might think. Healthcare is a massive problem. Somebody in the nursing profession right now, because of the massive shortage, can easily make well in excess of $100,000 a year. So my ability to pay that is frankly a challenge. So in recruiting faculty in that space, it's about the opportunity to work with students, be able to be in an instructional environment, have the opportunity to see nurturing a student to become the next contributing member of the health profession. And I got to play on that emotion, that affect. And I can't necessarily play on the financial piece because I just don't have the wherewithal to do it. That is a major challenge right now. The healthcare space is significant.
Well, President Kenneth Evans, hey, thank you so much for taking a little bit of the time out of this morning to be with us.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure talking with you, Brad.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the College Admission TV Presidential Podcast. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll bring you another insightful conversation with a distinguished leader in higher education.